Hey guys, this is Mark Howard, author of the Griffin Legends fantasy novel series. Thanks for joining me here tonight. In today's episode, I wanted to, more or less give a general update of what's going on here. I apologize, I did not have a video for last week. I had a bit of a cold there last week. It's fall transitioning over to winter here, and so all kinds of coughs and sniffles, and so excuse me. I just wasn't feeling good last week here, but hopefully we'll make it through the winter without too many more interruptions there. What have I been up to the last week here? So I had a few more fans reach out to me on my author website just saying, hey, we really like your books. Thanks so much for writing them. Hope you have more in the future. And, I gotta say that I really like getting those emails on my author website and seeing those messages on Facebook and all that, right? We authors, we tend to have somewhat fragile egos, right? Even if 500, 1,000 of you, or however many are out there buying my books, it's easy to kind of forget that, there are people that really love these things. And so it's always encouraging to me as an author to get those kinds of messages. So if you haven't had the chance yet, feel free to drop a line here on my author website or Facebook or Twitter or whatever the case may be, right? We authors, we always love getting those messages, especially when you say, hey, I really loved it, and when's the next book coming out, right? Those messages always give us the warm fuzzies that we really want there. So the other thing that is going on right now here is I'm working quite a bit on the encyclopedia for my setting. And I forget if I talked a lot about this encyclopedia project I'm working on or not, but it's been a greater or lesser focus over the last several months getting this done here because what I found in my first book was with my world building, I was able to keep most of it straight in my head, right? Remembering the various characters, what they look like, their attitudes, a lot of the backgrounds and that kind of stuff. I was able to keep most of that in my head fairly easily without use of too much notes or anything like that, right? Well, when I got to writing my second book, Godfrey Under Siege, that proved a lot more difficult, right? Because now I had previously established lore, right? If I mentioned a character's eye color in one book, I had to make sure that it was consistent in the second book. Or if I described what kind of armor someone was wearing in my second book, I wanted to go back and make sure, does this mesh with what I had previously talked about, or did I previously talk about it, right? In some cases, I found that there were characters or groups of people in my second book that, going back to my first book, I said to myself, I didn't describe this group or this person in a lot of detail. And so there was a lot of hunting through my first book, looking for consistencies and trying to avoid something like changing someone's hair color or giving them a sword as their main weapon in one paragraph and the next paragraph down going and giving them an axe or something instead. And so I found a few errors like that in my first book, and sometimes even just within one book. And so I made it a big project of mine here fairly recently to find all those errors, find those inconsistencies, and tidy all those up for the latest edition of Godfrey's Crusade and Godfrey Under Siege, right? So I found all the little errors of that nature, as well as a bunch of little stylistic inconsistencies and a few typos that had somehow slipped through, like, I don't know how many rounds of editing. And so I made sure to get all those cleaned up as much as I possibly could. And now we've got new editions of Godfrey's Crusade and Godfrey Under Siege that are going through the background process with my publisher, and those will be out here, cross our fingers, fairly soon. It's just, like I said, waiting on the background stuff. But like I said, main thing is I want to have that stuff all in one place, written down, that I could easily reference for moving forward as we go into book 3 and book 4 and 5 and beyond, however many stories come after that. So it's mostly for the sake of getting things down right for future projects moving forward, but also, as I have mentioned here previously, my wife is also writing in this setting, and she wants to be able to reference these things. And, you know, we're not always in the same place at the same time, and so we need to be able to have that stuff on hand without being able to ask each other sometimes. And then in addition to my wife, my brother Chris is also starting an adventure in this world too, as well as I know this might sound like a big list here, but there's a couple of friends in addition who are also writing in this setting. So there's a small group of us now that are all trying to add our own stories to this setting. And the most important thing here when writing in a shared universe is that we don't unintentionally contradict each other, right? That's something that we want to make sure that that we take seriously there, because there's a lot of you fans out there who really like the immersiveness of this world, and we want to make sure that that we are, like I said, being consistent about it, but also make sure that that as we're adding more to this, that we're able to all be on the same page with adding more to this story. Like there's entire parts of this world that we have not touched on yet, that have their own stories waiting to be told. And we want to lay the groundwork for that and bounce ideas off each other's heads. And there's some stories that I myself personally don't have a lot of interest in writing, but there's other people who want to write in this setting that I'm very close friends with and talk to about these things constantly, who do want to write some of these stories and explore other ideas that I don't necessarily think are bad ideas, but are something that are maybe better told by another person. And so I think that this is a good opportunity to see other people play in other corners of the sandbox, so to speak, there, right? So I think that's going to be a lot of fun here, seeing what some new authors bring to the table, as well as myself carrying forward with Godfrey's story and continuing with that narrative. There's a number of characters here who I've written background stories for, like Carl the Hammer or Urzg the Orc Chieftain, right? And I think a lot of you out there have enjoyed those stories, but there's other characters out there who who I'll rightly never have the time to write the background story for, or the origin story for, at least not in a full-length novel form. But I have a couple friends who are very much interested in expanding their adventures out in new ways that I may or may not ever have time to get to. So I'm excited to see what they do with characters like Léon de Valois or Tancred. Those are two characters that are being worked on right now by a couple of my friends who are also writing in this setting. And so that's going to be some exciting stuff. And my brother Chris, he is particularly working on a story about some elves who have kind of an ice theme with their culture. And, the elves are a group that I've touched on a little bit in my stories, right? We meet one elf by the name of Luca. We know that he was part of this elvish empire that fell long ago, and I've kept a bit of a mystery to the elves by and large, right? We know that they were there in the past, but they are mostly long gone now, and the few that are still around live in isolation, and they don't want their seclusion disturbed. And so it'll be fun to see at least one story, maybe more, coming from my brother, who wants to look at some elves in more depth than what I've given treatment to at this point. So anyway, there's a lot of exciting things coming down the pipe here. I know some of you have been asking, when's part 3 of Godfrey's Adventures coming out? I don't have a firm date for that yet. Right now, my top 2 priorities, as I mentioned, are one, working on this encyclopedia, which I've made a lot of progress on. I say I've got more of the articles done for it than not at this point, but it's still kind of a work in progress. And one of the dangers with working on a world building project is you can kind of get stuck on world building, right? When you create some background information, right? Whether this is a place or a person or whatever it is you happen to be working on here, you can create a lot of fun and interesting details, and in process, that might spawn a whole other article. Like, say for instance, you're writing an article about this kingdom that has been at war with a neighboring kingdom for a long time. And maybe these two kingdoms only have peripheral mention in your story, right? I'm thinking of 2 kingdoms in particular, the kingdom of Dyfred and the kingdom of Ogledd on the island of Cardigal. And these places only get like a little bit of a mention in Godfrey's Crusade and not much in Godfrey Under Siege. But I have to write an article on at least these 3 places because, well, they do get mentioned, and I want to make sure that the details I do have are consistent going forward, as well as to serve as the building blocks for any other writers that I'm working with who might want to go into more depth on any of those things. But also, it can be so much fun going into the histories of these made-up places that it might not be too big of a stretch to talk about not just these 2 kingdoms on the island of Cardigal, but to also talk about some of the neighboring islands with their own kingdoms on them that have their own interesting stories and characters. And it can turn into quite a rabbit hole if you're not careful. And so I'm trying to stay focused and not create too many articles for things that I don't need to write articles on at the moment. So trying to stay focused on just focusing on what is specifically mentioned in Godfrey's Crusade and Godfrey Under Siege, as well as the short stories that I've written so far. So that's first and and top priority for me at the moment. Second priority, and not far behind that, is to help my wife, Summer, who you met in a video a couple weeks ago, with wrapping up her first novel here, Eleanor's Cataphracts. And Summer has been working on this book for a really long time, and she's put her heart and soul into it. And she, like all of us, right? We need some feedback. We need some guidance. There's things that we get stuck on, and we say, okay, how do I get through this difficult part right here? And so I'm spending a lot of my evenings helping her work through her second draft here on this. And so that's something that is a really big goal for us right now. And we're hoping, cross our fingers, that we've got a few months left on this rather than, say, years down the line. And so I'm hoping that we can get a 2024 release for my wife's book, Eleanor's Cataphracts. Stay tuned here, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and all that, for the big announcement when that book is out, because I know a lot of you have been looking forward to that for a long time. And so once those two big projects have more or less settled down, that's when I'm going to go into the third part of Godfrey's adventures full force here. I've got a pretty good outline for that book right now, but with the limiting factors of a day job, these other things I'm working on, plus 4 small kids at home to take care of, it's unfortunately there's just not enough hours in the day to give that third part of my series the full attention it really deserves right now. But it's coming. I'm not stopping here. I think we have built up a lot of momentum so far, right? There's plenty of you out there who really want to see book 3 and beyond come out. I, if nothing else, really want to see this series through to completion, right? There's a number of things that I think we all start in life that that we end up not finishing for one reason or another, right? I didn't get my black belt in Taekwondo. I didn't get my Eagle Scout in Boy Scouts, but I don't want that to be the case for this fantasy novel series, right? I want there to be, I want to finish Godfrey's story, and I want that very much so. And everything that I'm working on is hopefully to help bring that goal to fruition in the long term here, right? We're doing what we can to lay a good foundation for this setting so that lots of stories can be told in here for years and years to come. We're helping my wife get her book off the ground, which is in I think a lot of our opinions, my wife especially, long overdue to get that out there to the world. And then hopefully the excitement continues to build on your part, the fans here, and we can get more people on board, interested in the books, spreading the word, buying them, and we eventually make enough sales, and maybe one day I am able to go full-time with this whole author gig here. And then I can be churning out books at a much faster rate than once every couple of years. But anyway, it's a lot of fun, guys. This is an incredible journey, and I'm happy to have all of you along for the ride. I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving, and that the rest of your holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever, so forth, I hope you guys really enjoy all those, and we will see you all next time. All right, take care.